Live, Mike.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Choose Inclusion, our special series, Black Voices Matter. And I am joined, as always, with my two amazing co-hosts, Nina and Ubaldo. Welcome, guys.
Good morning.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, and this is part two of an amazing interview that we started yesterday with Mr. Abe Arrington. And yesterday we learned a little bit about your backstory, Abe, and what got you, to 2020. But today is going to be also during time spent over the last few decades, how you kept yourself busy and how you plan on saving the world today and making the world a better place. So Abe, welcome back. And I'd love to dive right into some of these amazing entrepreneurial ideas that you have. So Abe, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So Abe, I want to start off by getting context on your kind of professional career and the skills that you started building, what you started studying during the 30 years you were in prison that set you up for the amazing startup that you're building now.
Right. Okay. I guess it really started probably within about I would say it started right away, because when I first became incarcerated, they had some college courses, but it was just some general studies kind of stuff, a math class, ethics class, and things of that nature. When I first got incarcerated, but like within a year of my incarceration in prison, they actually had took all the college or university programs they had out of the prison. They canceled all of them. So that kind of left me on my own, so to speak. And but I had a lot of things even prior to my incarceration that I wanted to study. There were things I wanted to do with my life, and I finally had to just tell myself that either I'm going to sit here and wait for them to bring that back, or just start some kind of education program that suit my needs, or I was going to have to do it on my own. And so I basically had kind of mapped out a list of training blocks that I used to refer to them as training blocks, things that I wanted to work on and study. And I basically decided to go about doing that. And so as it would have it, I went ahead and I started getting myself the books, textbooks if I could, all the materials I could. And I would literally just put myself through my own little college course. I did math. I had to do college algebra and trig and things of that. And I would be honest with myself. I'd get the textbooks and I would do the lessons and read through them to the best I could. And I would do the exercises at the end. And sometimes in the textbooks they would have half the answers or the answers in the back of the book. And I would check my work and see how I was doing and see what I needed to work on and keep doing that. And finally, I got myself up to the point where I started getting off into some physics, science, and engineering, and I started working diligently on that. And it was around that time that when I started really getting into I guess you might say, the inventor phase of my incarceration, which really wasn't really intended. I just wanted to educate myself. But I was watching a massive flooding in the Midwest somewhere. I think it was in Indiana. And there was some loss of life. There was a lot of loss of property, and I saw people on TV who were talking about all the things they were lost. Of course, they were visibly upset and everything like that. And I saw them filling sandbags, and I saw the areas in the result where the sandbags had filled, and that really had frustrated me. And I was upset about that. And I was having this discussion, in my mind. I was like, why the heck are we using sandbags? It's obviously not working. These people lost all this stuff. And and people lost their lives. And so we put a man on the moon, but we're using sandbags, to protect against floods. It's not working. And I kept saying that. And I said, somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to do something better. And finally, I kind of checked myself, and I was like, well, you studied all this engineering and whatever the heck it is you're studying. What are you studying it for? And so I just went ahead and I sat down right at that moment. I picked up a sketch pad and I went ahead and I just started sketching out what I thought would be, a better system, a better way of doing things. And that was pretty much the beginning of it right there. And I eventually came up with which is now our system for flood mitigation. I came up with that.
What drove you to studying, like teaching yourself physics and engineering is not easy.
Right.
So like what drove you to doing that, and how did you do that without kind of, a network of professors and all that stuff that, other people get?
Well, first, I guess I should preface what I'm saying by saying that the jury is still out on whether or not I'm really good at it. But but I mean, patting aside, I had this curiosity that was always there. Like I said, when I was in the Air Force, uh, I used to love watching the Discovery Channel things, which had just came out right before I got out of the military. I used to like watching the different shows like that, the educational shows on science and engineering and physics. And when I got out the military and I was studying to get for my AMP license, like I talked about yesterday, and I came home to Colorado Springs to stay with my father and stuff. My goal was in the long run was to go back to college to possibly study engineering or really aeronautical engineering, something like that, and maybe eventually get a job for NASA because I love, reading and studying about space. And so that's what actually drove me. Matter of fact, the first thing I started studying in prison was, astronomy, without a telescope. But I decided I was going to learn as much as I could, without the use of a lot of the I guess you might say the materials and being able to do the labs. And eventually, so I worked my way up to, like I said, higher math and science, physics, and energy. But to simplify it, the best answer I can give you is really it's just, as they say, it sounds kind of cliche, but it was just an overwhelming desire to know. I really wanted to know things. You know what I mean? Whether it was about the planets or about how to make a better building, when it comes to construction, or things like that. I wanted to know things, how things worked, and so that's what set me about doing that. And consequently, like I said, the flood mitigation system, we kind of laugh about it sometimes, my brother and sister and I, because I designed that, and it really didn't take me that long to design it. The system that we have now that we have the patent for, it didn't take me that long. I think maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, I had that worked out, and it's so simple. Like my brother said, it's so simple. It's brilliant. It's not really that complicated. Um, but um, but there's other systems that we have. And that's the reason why we laugh about it, because I have several other systems. I have, of course, the renewable energy system. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I have the climate change mitigation system, and I designed these, which I still believe are far more interesting. And I remember with the flood mitigation system, I was willing to give it away if anyone was willing to talk to me about it. And but that wasn't available to me because I was incarcerated. I was like, man, I'll give this thing away just to be able to get the climate change mitigation system, which I designed to protect cities from heat waves and crops from drought. And then of course the renewable energy system, which to me is which is extremely interesting because it's something that we hope once we get through all the legal stuff dealing with it, that we're dealing with now with the patents and stuff like that, we want to make it available uh, uh, quite honestly, we want to make it available to as many people or companies as possible, um, to basically have a system that's viable to replace fossil fuels, to cut down CO2 emissions and everything else like that, and to help to basically heal the planet as far as the atmosphere and all that is concerned. And then there's the thing to remove plastics from the ocean. There's just so much stuff that we're working on that we have on the table. So yeah.
What's really cool and interesting and a parallel, and just to preface this comment because it just came into my head, but I'm not comparing situations necessarily, but Mike always talks about the disabled community who frankly are some of the most educated people in the world because they are not given the chance to find work. And so it's just a really random, interesting parallel that, there's this oppression, right? These
Right.
systemic things that are holding people back there, those who are incarcerated, those who can't get jobs. And so they learn. And I think it's fascinating. Like, I don't think people think about that often enough. All they see is, well, they're incarcerated or they're blind, right?
Right.
And so it's a fascinating thing that I think if people were just more curious and opened up their minds, I mean, they're the things you're doing are things that, we truly will save thousands and thousands of lives. Like, it's incredible.
Right. And like you said, as far as, when you talked about the community, I think it's an apt comparison in a lot of ways. And and it's really telling, because a lot of the people that we have on the team that we have, or some of the key people that we have on the team are also formerly incarcerated. My old cellie is one of them. His name is Anthony Sanford, really great guy. He did almost 20 years, and he's very, very, I didn't bring him on board because he was my old seller, or even because I liked the guy. I brought him on board because he's extremely capable. You know what I mean? I told my brother and sister, I said, he's very resourceful, and he's got like a pit bull kind of mentality when it comes to saying, okay, well, I need to get this done, I need to get that. And he knows how to, basically, when it comes to like being a project manager in a lot of sorts, he's extremely good at that. My investor, was formerly incarcerated, and he had the money, and he said, "Hey, man, I have money. I'm willing to, not just to fund you and back you." He said, "But he's Chinese American. He's like, man, he said, I can help you get manufacturers, in Taiwan or wherever else, and do that." And he's been doing that. You know what I mean? So everybody's got their role that they've been playing. And, and of course, my brother and sister doing the things that they do, logistically and all that other kind of stuff. My brother's like the Intel guy. He helps when we have to download stuff and, do stuff on the computer and everything. Everybody has a role. And like I said, it's just really, it really is crazy because, it's like this, when it comes to, what you're saying about how people are quick to, I guess you might say, disregard or write off, a particular community, whether it's the disabled community or the incarcerated community. But I always say this: you can choose your heroes, but you cannot choose your saviors. You know what I mean? And that's really what it comes down to.
I love. I'm absolutely I'm gonna steal that from you right now. I'm just letting you know, Abe. I love that. So in our organization that I'm blessed to run, I like to say now, like, so we're a team of all blind, visually impaired people, and we have our token sighted person. So so we kind of eat our own dog food too. And the space that Blind Institute of Technology is in as a nonprofit, Abe, we talk to organizations about diversity, equity, inclusion, hiring initiatives, and within that space of DE&I conversations, justice involved is always one of those demographics. And it's fascinating to me that how few organizations, like the two demographics I like never hear about when I'm talking to organizations, is one, the people with disabilities community, and two is the justice involved. So I love the fact that you're just saying, okay, well, your loss is our gain. There's a lot of talent here. Don't consider, past, and obviously not in your case, but past indiscretions as a barometer of future opportunities. And so I love the fact that you're doing that yourself. And I love the fact that, so I'd like to get you to talk about, again, you're talking about project management, you're talking about, enterprise resource planning, you're talking business, because not only do you have a patent, you're planning on building not only one business, maybe an umbrella, like a holding company for all these different businesses. Talk to us about your relationship and how you're growing that acumen through the organization Defy.
Well, Defy it helped in a lot of ways for me to refine my business model and the vision overall, and it also helped me with networking. Being able, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, and by networking and talking to different people, that becomes like, like a tree with a lot of different branches, in and of itself. And I was put in contact through Defy, through some of the volunteers, because they have monthly coffees. I think it's they just stopped them now because of the weather, but it was like the second Thursday of every month. They would have these morning coffees and things like that, and you can go in and just talk to people, and you get to meet people from diverse backgrounds. Some of them are business oriented and stuff like that. But really, it started even before I got out of prison. I mean, some of the people who Defy had introduced me to immediately upon my release from prison. Uh, and I went to Defy. As soon as I got out, I went down to the office and everything, and I talked to Stacy and Izzy and Nick, who also was formerly incarcerated person who works down there. Great people, and they started talking about, hey, what do you need? You're working on your business, and so what do you need? And I said, well, I got my potential investor line at this time. I still hadn't decided whether I was going to go with him or not. I said, but for instance, I was like, I need to maybe get some software, and I've been incarcerated for 30 years, so I didn't know what kind of software out there that was available as far as engineering software and drafting software. And they said, okay, well, we'll put you, in contact with somebody for that. And lo and behold, they put me in contact with, with one of the guys who helped start the company SketchUp. You know what I mean? Which is, one of the best, drafting softwares, engineering softwares in the world. And so, Tom, so I met Tom. He's like, "Oh, Abe, no problem. I'll just go ahead and I'll give you the software." And so he basically gifted this to me, and I use that still. I've been using it, for our projects going forward. And and one of the guys, Kevin Cloud, who I met through Defy, he was like, "Well, hey, I can put you in contact with, an industrial engineer. This guy, sets up companies and factories around the world." And he put me in contact with a wonderful guy. I mean, the guy is great. And this guy just took his time out and automatically just within not even a couple of weeks of my being out, I think maybe a month at best, he had me doing telephone conferences with engineers in Ireland and India, saying, "Hey, what do you need?" I said, "Well, I want to make this thing out of plastic. I don't know what kind of plastic to use." And they're talking to me about that, you know what I mean? And then he put me in contact with another engineer, said, "Hey, out in India." So I'm talking to people in India, and this guy's going to do the 3D simulation for you for free, and so forth and so forth. And so we get all this stuff lined up, and everything just starts coming together. And and it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I feel extremely blessed, to be able to have these people, be willing to help me and things like that. I really love it, because to me it's also a world venture. This thing has turned into a world venture to get this done, and we're hoping other projects will be like that as well. Again, our kind of like one of our slogans for Imhotec Geoengineering is that Imhotec, we are the future. You know what I mean? And we really feel like that. We see ourselves as the future for the world, as far as being a catalyst for change with regards to a lot of things that are being done as we see it incorrectly right now with regards to the planet, the way that energy works in the planet right now. It can no longer go that way. We're looking at trying to change that. We've pretty much reached a tipping point a long time ago when you can't continue to do the things the way that we're doing them. And that goes for other things. Like I said, removing plastics from the oceans and sanitations and all kind of other things. Climate change mitigation. The whole nine, that's what we do. And Imhotec is really the umbrella organization, like you said, because one of the companies we branched off of that was AWOL, which is the flood mitigation system, and GeoClips, which is the renewable energy system company. So yes, we're going in that direction full speed.
How did you come up with the name Imhotec Geoengineering?
I studied a lot. Like I said, a lot of different subjects. It wasn't just engineering. Like history, of course, was one of them that I was always big on. History, theology, philosophy. I studied the Greeks. I studied some Asian philosophers as well, of course, and even some of the Western philosophers and stuff. But Imhotec comes from Imhotep, who was the famed Egyptian builder of the Step Pyramid, philosopher, holy man. Doctor, and everything. There's a lot of legend around Imhotep, and so I thought it was quite appropriate that we would name the company Imhotec, and so we thought that was cool. So that's how we came up with that
It is cool. I love stuff like that, and I think your motto, your mission that you mentioned, that we are the future. I think it just has so many cool different meanings, like that, you know, because we're having, you know, we're in the midst of this fight right now for equality for everyone. And you know, having discussions about these systemic issues and the oppression and the wrongful convictions and all these things. And I just think it's so appropriate, right? I think it just means so much more, because of what you're doing and what you've been through, and the team you've gathered. It's really quite amazing.
Right, definitely. I would, second that by saying, you know, is because I always say it's really not just me. Like I said, because on my team, I have, of course, my brother and sister who, they're not formerly incarcerated persons, and some of the other guys who help on the team. But of course, like, I just mentioned, Anthony Samper and Jin Woo, these guys are formerly incarcerated. But then it's like, where I work at, people who are doing, really big things, to on a community level. You can talk about, on a social level and even on a political level, to make the world a better place. And I marvel at that all the time, that pretty much almost everybody at Second Chance Center was a formerly incarcerated person, and they have extremely compelling stories, which I alluded to yesterday. You know, and the impact, just cannot be dismissed. You know what I mean? Even with like, of course, with Defy, what Defy is doing, because Defy is about really just bringing people who are formerly incarcerated and getting them to change, as they used to say, change their hustle, from something, maybe like Defy alum, encompass people who are like, might have been drug dealers who are now, maybe selling something else. You know what I mean? And it's really, Defy in Colorado is a franchise. It's here in Colorado, but there are Defy branches in California. There are Defy branches in New York. They're all over the place, where they're taking people who are getting out of prison, and having them do a lot of positive things. And this all really goes to basically to really just to it's a pushback on the myth, because right now there is an undercurrent that you can't release a lot of people from prison. When people start talking about prison reform and things like that, they're like, well, we can't let all these people out because they're dangerous, or because of this, that, or the other. And to me, that harkens back to, Thomas Jefferson talking about, slavery, and the reason why you couldn't, do away with slavery, which, prison is, really a manifestation of that in and of itself. But his pushback was, it's like having a wolf by the ears, dangerous to hold on and dangerous to let go. And of course, that was completely debunked. That was completely a false narrative. And right now you have the same thing. People are saying, well, yeah, we put all these people in prison, but we're afraid to let them go, in large numbers. And to me, that's just ridiculous. And not just because, I'm speaking about myself or even personal friends that I have or anything like that. But I know that there are a lot of people who are incarcerated, who can do, great things, who can contribute. And Second Chance Center, is proven that. It's proven that, in a very big way, because people involved with Second Chance Center have a 5% recidivism rate. 5%, and the national average is somewhere like around 50 to 55%. So, given, proper resources and things like that, people don't choose to go back to prison. You know what I mean? And Defy is also, another program that helps in that regards, because they're taking people and saying, hey, well, we can help show you, a different way, or help you to cultivate, entrepreneurial skills and things of that nature, as well as some of the other things that they do, because it's not just about that with Defy. There's other aspects of the program. And so yeah, both of these programs, they should, both of these programs should be funded really, by the state on a larger scale than what they are. If you want to really make your society a better place, and get away from just mass incarceration. And I just want to say this real quick as also a note to that. I became acutely aware shortly after I got locked up, because I'm sitting here and I'm looking at what's going on, and what had happened to myself, and I just really couldn't believe it. And I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand it. It was just crazy. But the operating budget of the Colorado Department of Corrections at the time that I got incarcerated was like somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 million annually. $60 million, which is a lot of money. and but that was for everything. That was for paying staff, for paying the bills, keeping the lights on in the prisons, and also feeding, clothing, and whatever the inmate population. Right now, it's I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like $800 million. I mean, creeping toward $1 billion, and I'm like, wow, and I sit there and I used to watch the legislation being passed where they were raising the sentences, and they were deciding that they were going to spend money on prisons as opposed to schools. I watched this, and to me that was just insane. You know what I mean? And I would love to see that rolled back. And again, you know, I don't. I'm not willing to let the narrative get out there that, well, you can't roll it back because these people are in there and you can't release them because they're animals and things like that. And so again, like you said, my wrongful conviction aside, I have people on my team who were incarcerated, persons, and I work with people who are formerly incarcerated persons, and all of us are making the world a better place. All of us are, and so the world needs, like we say, the world needs a company like Imhotec. Not just because of what we're doing, but because I guess you might say, our what we look like as a company.
Abe, I absolutely love that. I'm so glad that you brought up that policy issue too. Like, I think our listeners definitely need to understand that a lot of these policy issues drive a lot of these economic and systemic problems
Right.
that occur. I have to ask you though, UB, Mike, and I, we're all founders. We've all been through the founder journey. And I think, like you said, one of the things that makes it possible is really just the people around you that kind of bring you up, support, and help you. So our listeners come from all different backgrounds and have all different types of connections. What is it that you need to get Imhotec Geoengineering to the next step?
What we really need, I mean, it's something really relatively simple. And I said this one time during the pitch competition for Defy, which I won. I won the pitch competition when I was incarcerated. And I told him, I said, particularly when it comes to our flood mitigation system and the other systems, of course, we'll get to that when those are ready, which hopefully be soon. But what I'm asking, if I had to ask right now, what I'm asking is really, really very simple, because everybody, who is listening right now, at some point in probably in the coming weeks, you're going to see flooding somewhere in the continental United States. You're going to see it. You know what I mean? Whether it's because of a hurricane, a river that crests, or something of that nature, unfortunately, you're going to see that. When that happens, all I'm asking people to do is to contact their local and/or national, federal, emergency management agency, whether it's FEMA or the local one that they have, and/or the Army Corps of Engineers. And I want them to just ask and say, hey, there's a company out there called AWOL, under Imhotec Geoengineering. That's spelled IMHOTEC, Imhotec, a geoengineering company that has a flood mitigation system that actually can mitigate a lot of this. Why are you not purchasing their system? You know what I mean? That's really just it. If you, by putting pressure on local leaders, emergency management agency leaders and things of that nature, and the federal ones, and at least getting them to look at us and give us a shot, and saying, okay, what do you guys have? And we can show them the system. And again, when we're supposed to go get tested in about 2 months, and that's going to be at one of the Army Corps of Engineers testing sites. When we do that, of course, they will have a better understanding and I guess you might say more of a justification, for purchasing our system. But even leading up to that, we would like to bring pressure to bear with people, asking them, say, hey, please look at these people, their system, you know what I mean, and look at getting it. It's a rapid deploy, easy deploy system, and that could save a lot of lives.
Well, I got to tell you, Abe, I really hope there's a listener or 12 out there that helps you get the word out there. Because quite honestly, Abe, I can tell you as a founder, as Ubaldo and Nina, we get it, and we like to think that all the magic happens because we're so bright. I know different. It is absolutely because of people who buy into, what you're selling. And I am certainly on board with that. I hope you keep in touch with us and let us know the amazing progress that you're making. And I hope that, again, a listener or 12 is able to help you connect some dots out there with what you're doing, how you are aiming to help our planet, because it certainly needs some help. I love your saying, like, you can pick your heroes, you can't pick your saviors. And I'm going to steal that. I'm telling you that right now.
I do not mind.
So thank you so much for today. Thank you for being a two-parter series. You were such an interesting guest. We had to do that with you. So thank you so much for being on. Ubaldo, Nina, thank you for being my co-host. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us again with Abe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.